path of devotion most elective for Kali Yuga. Karma Yoga is very hard indeed. In the Kali Yuga, it is extremely difficult to perform the rites enjoined in the scriptures. Nowadays, man's life is centered on food alone. He cannot perform many scriptural rites. Suppose a man is laid up with fever. If you attempt a slow cure with the old-fashioned indigenous remedies, before long his life may be snuffed out. He can't stand much delay. Nowadays, the drastic D-Gupta mixture is appropriate. In the Kali Yuga, the best way is Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, singing the praises of the Lord and prayer. The path of devotion alone is the religion for this age. To the Brahmo devotees, yours also is the path of devotion. Blessed you are indeed that you chant the name of Hari and sing the Divine Mother's glories. I like your attitude. You don't call the world a dream like the non-dualists. You are not Brahmgyanis like them. You are bhaktas, lovers of God. That you speak of him as a person is also good. You are devotees. You will certainly realize him if you call on him with sincerity and earnestness. The boat cast anchor at Kalyaghat, and the passengers prepared to disembark. On coming outside, they noticed that the full moon was up. The trees, the buildings, and the boats on the Ganges were bathed in its mellow light. A carriage was hailed for the master, and M and a few devotees got in with him. The master asked for Keshav. Presently the latter arrived and inquired about the arrangements made for the master's return to Dakshineshwar. Then he bowed low and took leave of Sri Ramakrishna. The carriage drove through the European quarter of the city. The master enjoyed the sight of the beautiful mansions on both sides of the well-lighted streets. Suddenly he said, "I am thirsty. What's to be done?" Nandlal, Keshav's nephew, stopped the carriage before the India Club and went upstairs to get some water. The master inquired whether the glass had been well washed. On being assured that it had been, he drank the water. As the carriage went along, the master put his head out of the window and looked with childlike enjoyment at the people, the vehicles, the horses, and the streets, all flooded with moonlight. Now and then he heard European ladies singing at the piano. He was in a very happy mood. The carriage arrived at the house of Suresh Mitra, who was a great devotee of the master, and whom he addressed affectionately as Surendra. He was not at home. The members of the household opened a room on the ground floor for the master and his party. The cab fare was to be paid. Surendra would have taken care of it had he been there. The master said to a devotee, "Why don't you ask the ladies to pay the fare? They certainly know that their master visits us at Dakshineshwar. I am not a stranger to them." All laughed. Narendra, who lived in that quarter of the city, was sent for. In the meantime, Sri Ramakrishna and the devotees were invited to the drawing room upstairs. The floor of the room was covered with a carpet and a white sheet. A few cushions were lying about. On the wall hung an oil painting especially painted for Surendra, in which Sri Ramakrishna was pointing out to Keshav the harmony of Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, and other religions. On seeing the picture, Keshav had once said, "Blessed is the man who conceived the idea." Sri Ramakrishna was talking joyously with the devotees when Narendra arrived. This made the master doubly happy. He said to his young disciple, "We had a boat trip with Keshav today. Vijay and many other Brahmo devotees were there." Pointing to M, "Ask him what I said to Keshav and Vijay about the mother and daughter observing their religious fast on Tuesdays, each on her own account, though the welfare of the one meant the welfare of the other. I also said to Keshav that troublemakers like Jatil and Kutil were necessary to lend zest to the play." To M, "Isn't that so?" M, "Yes, sir, quite so." It was late. Surendra had not yet returned. The master had to leave for the temple garden, and a cab was brought for him. M and Narendra saluted him and took their leave. Three classes of devotees. As worldly people are endowed with sattva, rajas, and tamas, so also is bhakti, characterized by the three gunas. Do you know what a worldly person endowed with sattva is like? Perhaps his house is in a dilapidated condition here and there. He does not care to repair it. The worship hall may be strewn with pigeon droppings and the courtyard covered with moss, but he pays no attention to these things. The furniture of the house may be old. He does not think of polishing it and making it look neat. He does not care for dress at all. Anything is good enough for him. But the man himself is very gentle, quiet, kind, and humble. He does not injure anyone. Again, among the worldly there are people with the traits of Rajas. Such a man has a watch and chain, and 2 or 3 rings on his fingers. The furniture of his house is all spick and span. On the walls hang portraits of the Queen, the Prince of Wales, and other prominent people. The building is whitewashed and spotlessly clean. His wardrobe is filled with a large assortment of clothes. Even the servants have their livery and all that. The traits of a worldly man endowed with tamas are sleep, lust, anger, egotism, and the like. 3 kinds of bhakti. Similarly, bhakti devotion has its sattva. A devotee who possesses it meditates on God in absolute secret, perhaps inside his mosquito net. Others think he is asleep. Since he is late in getting up, they think perhaps he has not slept well during the night. His love for the body goes only as far as appeasing his hunger, and that only by means of rice and simple greens. There is no elaborate arrangement about his meals, no luxury in clothes, and no display of furniture. Besides, such a devotee never flatters anybody for money. An aspirant possessed of Rasik Bhakti puts a tilak on his forehead and a necklace of holy Rudraksh beads interspersed with gold ones around his neck. All laugh. At worship he wears a silk cloth. A man endowed with Tamasic Bhakti has burning faith. Such a devotee literally extorts boons from God, even as a robber falls upon a man and plunders his money. Bind, beat, kill, that is his way, the way of the dacoits. Utilizing tamas for spiritual welfare. Saying this, the master began to sing in a voice sweet with rapturous love, his eyes turned upward. Why should I go to Ganga or Gaya, to Kashi, Kanchi or Prabhas, so long as I can breathe my last with Kali's name upon my lips? What need of rituals has a man? What need of devotions any more, if he repeats the mother's name at the 3 holy hours? Rituals may pursue him close, but never can they overtake him. Charity, vows, and giving of gifts do not appeal to Madan's mind. The blissful mother's lotus feet are his whole prayer and sacrifice. Who could ever have conceived the power her name possesses? Shiva himself, the god of gods, sings her praise with his 5 mouths. The master was beside himself with love for the divine mother. He sang with fiery enthusiasm. If only I can pass away repeating Durga's name, how canst thou then, O blessed one, withhold from me deliverance, wretched though I may be? Then he said, one must take the firm attitude. What? I have chanted the mother's name. How can I be a sinner any more? I am her child, heir to her powers and glories. If you can give a spiritual turn to your tamas, you can realize God with its help. Force your demands on God. He is by no means a stranger to you. He is indeed your very own. Illustration of physicians. Again you see the quality of tamas can be used for the welfare of others. There are 3 classes of physicians: superior, mediocre, and inferior. The physician who feels the patient's pulse and just says to him, "Take the medicine regularly," belongs to the inferior class. He does not care to inquire whether or not the patient has actually taken the medicine. The mediocre physician is he who in various ways persuades the patient to take the medicine and says to him sweetly, "My good man, how will you be cured unless you use the medicine? Take this medicine. I have made it for you myself." But he who, finding the patient stubbornly refusing to take the medicine, forces it down his throat, going so far as to put his knee on the patient's chest, is the best physician. This is the manifestation of the tamas of the physician. It does not injure the patient. On the contrary, it does him good. 3 types of gurus. Like the physicians, there are 3 types of religious teachers. The inferior teacher only gives instruction to the disciples but makes no inquiries about their progress. The mediocre teacher, for the good of the student, makes repeated efforts to bring the instructions home to him, begs him to assimilate it, and shows him love in many other ways. But there is a type of teacher who goes to the length of using force when he finds the student persistently unyielding. I call him the best teacher.